Okay, so this has come to an end, but it's been great. It's been really great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'd like to first thank the sponsor of this event, the ESRC and the Institute of Engagement of the University of Warwick. I also would like to thank our three chairs of all of the panels. We have Goodnews Oshiogbele. He's Nigerian and a final year student of the master's program in population and development at the Higher School of Economics, Russia. And he chaired our first session, how social sciences might help to promote environmental behavior. We have Micaela Flores Lanza from Bolivia. She currently works at the private University of Bolivia at the Phytochemistry Research Center. She chaired our fourth panel on which policies that can be implemented in developing countries to address climate change. Finally, Diana Ruiz, industrial production engineer, environmental and sustainability enthusiast, innovation and project management focused on development. She chaired panel 3, the role of social science research in tackling global climate change. And lastly, myself, Rafael Quintero Godinez. I'm a 4-year PhD candidate at the University of Warwick, and I teach at the business school and the law school of university. And it's been a real pleasure to share with you this event and to address what is the topic of the event. Global challenges require global collaboration. We've been from people from 8 different nationalities, 9 women and 7 men, so 60% women, 40% men. And I think that pretty much reflect what's the topic of the panel and what the world demands. To address challenges in a global perspective, we have people from Bolivia, Ecuador, Germany, Italy, Mexico, Nigeria, Russia, and the United States. So 8 different nationalities from the global south and from the global north. And this is something that our speakers emphasized, that we cannot solve the problem of sustainability, problems of climate change, without a collaborative, multidisciplinary approach. I would like to ask now, Goodnews, which are the final remarks or those thoughts that draw your attention on the panel that you chair?
Thank you very much, Rafael, for that nice introduction, and thank you for this opportunity to share my reports from my panel. Well, it was a very interesting panel, and all 3 speakers were around. We had Professor Elena Sautkina, Professor Tim Jaike, and Dr. Henning Wills yesterday. And from Professor Sautkina, we were able to learn from her expertise in environmental psychology, and she spoke about the role of psychology in reducing environmental crises as it examines the interplay between people and their environment and finds out ways to make this better for sustainability. She also said that through behaving in ways that cause very little harm to the environment or benefit the environment, we are engaging in pro-environmental behavior. She gave some examples actually, and some of her examples included bringing your own shopping bag, preferably an eco bag, to retail stores, sorting and reducing waste, reducing flights, and the use of private automobile for short distance travels rather than reducing the use of private automobile for short distance travels. So she encouraged the use of public transport more than private transport. So those are some of the examples she gave. She also gave the example of using more of solar energy, which in other words we can refer to as renewable energy sources than fossil fuels. In terms of how psychology can help in the field of social science and in reducing anti-environmental behavior. She also said that the discipline can help by investigating the effectiveness of pro-environmental interventions, such as helping to design behavior change policies, related rewards and charges, provision of quality education and information, design and use of persuasive technologies, and as well as drive active collaboration between socio-economic sectors and other academic disciplines. So that was all we got, or all I can recall from Professor Elena Satkina in her presentation yesterday, and also from the questions that she answered. For Professor Tim Jaikel, he is an expert in public administration and environmental policy, and from his own thought, he shared that public administration and environmental policy can help by fine-tuning how political and administrative sciences interplay to encourage pro-environmental behavior. He emphasized that excessive waste generation by human activities have led to many global environmental problems. This is something that many of us are already familiar with. And then so he emphasized the need to minimize waste by being more prudent in our production and consumption processes. So the most important thing about his own presentation was that he suggested the need for countries to formulate and implement wise waste management policies, which should combine five strong elements: environmental education at schools, public places and the media, recycling infrastructure, pay as you throw fees, producers' responsibilities, as well as green public procurement. Finally, Dr. Helen Weeks shared his own idea about how circular economy can perform better than waste management in this situation. And to summarize everything, social sciences can help educate people and influence policymakers in the right path towards pro-environmental behavior through systematically including environmental education in every discipline, especially psychology, economics, and public administration. Thank you very much. That is all I think we need to recap concerning the session one discussion. Thank you, Rafael.
Thank you. Good news. One of the things you mentioned that really caught my attention was the importance on that measures to prevent or to fight climate change are not only at the macro level, but also at the individual level. And
Exactly.
you mentioned to reduce the use of the automobile, to not to use plastic bags and so on, because usually, or at least what usually comes to mind when we speak about fighting climate change, we think about the Paris Agreement, what countries should do, what the multinationals should do, and so on. But where is the individual, what we can do? And I think that's something very important that you mentioned.
Yeah, thank you. It's very important. And there's this concept about thinking globally and acting locally. So we should take actions locally wherever we are, while thinking globally that whatever we're doing right now is going to have a global effect on others. Like some speakers have already said in today's session, they said the countries that suffer the most from the effects of climate change are not even the ones that contributed the most to the deteriorating environment. So you see that whatever we do in our location has impact on others in the globe. So thank you very much for that insight as well.
Okay, then we go with Mika. I think it was a very interesting panel. Maybe you can share some thoughts or ideas that you draw from your panel. Probably the audience, and when I say the audience, it's me. I'm really interested in this notion of Mother Earth that Yomar shared with us. I think that the audience would be very interested. But share whatever you think that is relevant in your panel. Thank you, Mika.
Okay, thank you, Rafael. Well, my panel was about what sustainable policies are being implemented in developing countries. And the first speaker was Yomar. She's a cyber activist in sustainable environment here in Bolivia. Well, I consider the main idea that she wanted to express to people was the importance of the nature and sustainable development here in Bolivia. Here in Bolivia, we are comprised about more than 30 indigenous groups. So every one of these, each of these has its own beliefs about many things: sustainable environment, politics, economy, as Yomar was saying about the trick, that she thinks that trick is the best way to solve our economy, to resolve our economy. And well, what she says is very interesting in many indigenous perspectives. She believes that a sustainable environment is managed by seasons, by cycles, by Andean gods, by the Mother Earth itself, and that we should start embracing our past beliefs. Personally, I think that it is a little bit hard because many people are not used to it anymore, and maybe if we continue to in those beliefs, we cannot grow economically here in Bolivia. But it is a nice perspective to see how sustainable uh, environment uh, is seen by many indigenous groups here in Bolivia. Well, that's what I have about Omar. And the other is Scarlett. She mentioned about about the sustainable goals, about the sustainable development goals. She didn't mention everything, but she focused on how hard is to uh, implement the procedures of these goals in developing countries, especially because we face many political, economical issues that do not let us develop in sustainable development. And finally, it came Raúl Pacheco Vegas. He's an associate professor in the Methods Lab of the Latin American Faculty of Social Sciences based in Mexico. So he mentioned some difficulties that Mexico has about implementing politics in sustainable development in Mexico. If any one of you would like to address some specific points that Dr. Pacheco Vega said, it will be very welcomed. And well, these are my thoughts, my summarize about and the most important points about my speakers.
And indeed, very, very interesting as well. I would like to just to add something that Yomar mentioned, which I find very important, and that in the capitalistic society in which we live, it seems as if we treat our planet as a source of input, but we don't think on what we give back, what we return to Earth, right? And that's something that she stressed, and I think is very important because it means that we need to change not only how we produce things, right, to be more sustainable, but also to change the way we understand the world. That is not the earth for us, but it's a symbiotic relationship. Is the earth giving it to us and us giving it to the earth. I think
Yeah.
that was what one thought that really impressed me.
Yeah, and I would like to address something about it. Um Yomar is right about it, but it shouldn't be restricted to to a capitalist world. You know, I think that in Brazil, for example, we have a president that is focused on the right part of politics, and here in Bolivia we had a president that was focused on the left side, and well, both are not kind of helping sustainable development as we were having a lot of forest fires but focused on different perspective of politics. So we should focus on how we could manage which solutions we can give to this, focusing in both parts of politics.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. The solutions to climate crisis go beyond any political ideologies, right? Because this is, first of all, this is a global problem, and this demands global collaboration as the name of this event. So I would like now to give the floor to Diana. And Diana, do you have any final thoughts that you draw from your panel, the role of social sciences in tackling global climate change?
Well, I am very thankful of sharing this panel, because this is a topic that is much needed to be understood in our current society, and we have to address it like a fundamental value, because we are so overwhelmed with technology, with new productions, with new methods, but we are not taking into account what Mother Earth is saying to us, what she's expressing to us in terms of natural disasters, for example. And I would like to point a concept that it appealed to me in the third panel, that we have to make the distinction between energy efficiency and energy demand. Because while energy efficiency focuses on making more energy efficient machines, energy demand is more about how and why the demand is being created. So, for example, if a new car model has improved fuel efficiency, but this leads to the owner driving more as filling the tank is cheaper, there may be no net reduction in CO2. It could even increase, because people still have that culture of consumerism and not taking back what our natural environment is giving to us. We need to understand that walking or taking a bicycle is more sustainable than driving in cars in a weekend, for example. We need to work with, for example, economists, urbanists, to sculpt a better organized society. In terms of cities, for example, we need to give priorities to go to the natural habits we have. For example, walking, as I said, cycling. We need to rethink about how we are making things. A simple example is how you adjust your appliances in order that they don't consume a lot of energy. So this is a culture that it goes from a bottom-up approach. Another thing that, for example, in the third panel, Adolfo mentioned is the core of all the concept of socio-technical system. This is a phrase that emphasizes how social priorities and technological options become bundled together in a seamless web. So we need to join together and form a web in which all these interdisciplinary professionals, interdisciplinary concepts are linked in order to bring about these new technologies in order to make our society more sustainable. And the question, I need to bring about a question for the next steps. How far are people now in our society are prepared to walk, are prepared to invest? How our governments are prepared to invest in new circular economy, for example? We need to treat all the products, all the outcomes society is producing, in order that they aren't so harmful for our environment. So we need to give a complete treatment of each cycle in order to increase efficiency. And even governments could help us to invest in these procedures, not based in capitalism, not based in vain consumerism. It could be guided to welfare of communities and the welfare of our nature. And what is the main purpose of business today is to get profit, but based on what? At what price? we need to understand that upcoming business and ventures need to gain a brand of sustainability, and in that way promote good values and values that guide us to find a better society. I think this is the most relevant for me. I think there are three pillars in all this event, and this is education, legislation, and innovation. I think education is the first touchstone to go ahead with new generations that think about not only GDP, not only gaining profit. We need a better society that think how to measure our behavior regarding the planet. I think this is the first step, and then we can go to the legislation to promote these initiatives and move to other habits that make our society more helpful. I think innovation, as I said, this is like this is the top of the iceberg that we are working on, but we need to take into account bottom-up aspects like the response of our Mother Earth.
Absolutely, I agree with you, Diana. One of the things you mentioned, we should look beyond GDP, and this is something Clara in my panel stressed when she drew on the example of New Zealand, and how in New Zealand the government is focused on a well-being budget that takes into consideration mental health, improving child well-being, supporting marginalized populations, and so on. It's as you mentioned, when to give solution to these problems, we require education, because we require a new change of thinking. Right? We cannot continue with the same patterns of behavior, lavish styles of living, of consumerism, just because we want increasing consumption is what increases the GDP, and that's what triggers economic growth. That need to be reassessed, right? It's because that's the model, that's the economic model that brought us to the crisis in which we are. So it's not enough. Yes, Diana.
Yes, and this is important because capitalism is not the problem. The problem is how is it conceived in our current society, and we need to change the approach. Maybe the economic model is not the problem. The problem is how we were educated to conceive that.
I would argue that the problem it is the economic model, but I would like to know the thoughts of Goodnews, please.
Thank you very much, Diana and Rafael. Yes, I agree with you that we need to work on education, because I believe that is the key to changing how people think. Now, we're talking about the environment. The environment doesn't act upon itself. Most of the time, the environment reacts. It reacts to our activities. Now, we need to understand from childhood, not just from adulthood, because if you want to change behavior, the best way to approach is to deal with it from childhood, because whatever behavior we learn and get used to in childhood is what we take to adulthood and build upon. So from kindergarten, from basic education level up to tertiary level, there's need for environmental education to be incorporated in nearly every discipline. I don't want to say every discipline, because there are some disciplines that is very difficult to bring this thing in, but there's a way we can do it in a way that as people learn at school, they learn to respect Mother Earth. They learn to understand that it's not all about what I want. It's not all about me. It's about everyone. Now, when we talk about sustainable development, we are meant to understand that sustainable development is that kind of thinking where whatever policy you're making, whatever action you're carrying is with the mindset that you do not want to enjoy today and allow others to suffer tomorrow. So you want to give opportunity to others to enjoy tomorrow what you are enjoying today. I'm just trying to explain the definition of sustainable development in a way that I believe everyone can relate with. So whatever we are doing at school, at home, we need to be conscious of the fact that there is this concept called systems thinking. In systems thinking, you think like you are in a system. For instance, if you look at a spider web, if you touch a part of the web, it affects others. So if we can think that way, in a systematic way of thinking, then we can be very careful what we do, what we say, how we produce and consume. Gone are the days when GDP was the major determinant of the country with the most developed systems. Say, oh, this country is the most developed country in the world because of GDP. These days, we talk about HDI, Human Development Index. HDI has taken over because we are looking at education, the quality of education that people have, the healthcare, life expectancy, and other variables which now determine development of a country. But in this present time, in contemporary time, we're looking at how to bring in consciousness about the environment into people. And from all that we have shared, I agree with everyone of us that we need to cry out loud to those who design the curriculum for education at schools and those who make policies, those who make laws and implement laws, that we all need to take the environment into consideration. And we need to work together. We need to collaborate because this is a global challenge. We are feeling it, whether we like it or not. Climate change is everywhere. We are feeling it. We are feeling the impact. We are feeling the effects, the wildfires, the irregular weather conditions, the natural disasters in Bangladesh and different parts of the world. We need to fix these things. And the only way to fix it is to go back to where we missed it. I used to share with my friends at times, I tell them that sometimes the way forward is not forward. It's a little step backward. You need to go back to where you missed it and then take correction and move on from there. So thank you very much for this opportunity. In summary, we need to think in a systems way and we need to work on our educational system, both formal and informal, to teach children and adults to put the environment into consideration in whatever we do. Thank you.
I really like what you say about thinking systemically. Yeah, because otherwise we will have sectarian solutions to a global problem, and that will bring us to nowhere. Mika, you want to say something?
As Goodnews says, I also think that education is a pillar, because without education you don't have legislation, and the third pillar, Diana, was education, legislation, you said?
Innovation.
Innovation, yes, and you need education for both of them. And it is hard in many countries, in developing countries, it is hard to, as Rafael or Goodnews were saying, to include sustainable development curriculum in the education of children. You have to make many changes. Here in Bolivia, for example, we had a problem because of this COVID issue. The academic year for high school and school students was suspended. Everybody passed the year with a minimal grade, so they didn't learn what they had to learn. Maybe some of them, many of them are learning in their house, but they are not acquiring the knowledge in classes. And with this problem, maybe it could be a little bit difficult to implement sustainable development education in future curriculums. It will be ideal, but and I think that education is the pillar, and personally I'm working to foster that in Bolivia. And I hope in the future we get a better Bolivian, a better Latin America, a better Africa. For sure, I would like to achieve that.
Yes, something very important that you said, Mika, is that inclusion, and it comes to my mind that inclusion is not only we are talking about environmental issues, we're talking about inclusion of communities, because if we include and make a fair market system and a climate justice, it is understood that we need to include remote communities to start taking into account what are their problems, what are their concerns about a better future, because we are concentrated in monopolies, in production giants, but how about remote communities? So inclusion is very important in sustainability, in terms of leveraging resources, natural resources and economic resources too.
Yeah, agree.
Yes, and I think that's something Adolfo stressed when he was referring to the indigenous communities in Mexico, and I think that's something very important because we need to strengthen not only we need to strengthen those who are underrepresented. Dr. Michael Dursey in his intervention mentioned that the environmental crisis that we have currently, it affects the most those who are in the lower social strata. So those are the ones that we need to empower to address the crisis that we are facing. And of course, indigenous communities should be at the forefront. So I don't know where you have any final thoughts that you would like to share.
I think that it's your turn, Rafa, to make a summary of your speakers.
Yeah, yes. The final thoughts of my on my table, my panel. Sorry, Clara mentioned, as I referred previously, we should look beyond GDP. She gave the example of how New Zealand is implemented a well-being budget, which I think is quite interesting, and something that other countries might also look at. We also have Dr. Paola Garcia from UNAM. She mentions how to encourage transdisciplinary collaboration in sustainable projects, and I think that's something that we've been stressing here and in other panels, that we need cross-fertilization among all disciplines of science, social science and natural science. And finally, Dr. Michael Dursey stressed that the need of giving energy justice to those who are affected the most by the environmental crisis that we face. So I think this is it from us. I would like to thank again the audience that joined us throughout this event, the speakers, the chairs, the Institute of Engagement, and the ESRC for making this event possible. Thank you very much. Take care. Have an excellent rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
It has been a pleasure to work with you.
Yes,
Thank you, guys.
totally.
Same for me. Thank.
A great pleasure indeed.
See you. Bye.
See you.
Bye.